we're going to get more reaction now to the budget yesterday. Former Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell is here. Very good morning to you, John. Thanks so much for joining us. Headline question, how pleased are you to see the two-child benefit cap lifted, and do you commend the Chancellor for doing that?
I'm really chuffed. I'm really pleased, yeah. I want to thank all those people who campaigned for it as well, all those MPs, some of whom who lost the whip, Gordon Brown, a lot of volunteer organisations out there as well, worked really hard. We've got to the right place, and I'm really pleased. Should have been done ages ago, but we're there now.
I mean, it's funny you mentioned the whip being removed. Do you think the Prime Minister owes an apology to everyone who had the whip removed?
I'm not bothered about apologies. I just want us to move on now, because there's a lot more to be done, to be honest. We've scrapped the two-child limit, but we need to do a lot more. The government has promised a child poverty strategy. I want to see that, because there's nearly 6 million children living in poverty in our society. That's unacceptable.
Clearly, the two-child benefit cap is a big part of what's been lifted in that realm, but there's quite a lot more welfare spending in general. 16 billion more per annum by 2030 than had been previously thought. And the bond markets are very calm. Billionaires like John Caldwell joined us, seems very relaxed about the measures overall. Does that suggest that there's been too much concern about these types of spending programmes over the last year, and that for the right type of programme, it's OK to increase spending?
I think there's a recognition that we've got to reframe the discussion about welfare. I'm proud of a country that looks after its people. I'm proud of a country that has a welfare state. And the levels of welfare expenditure are on the basis of what people need at the moment. So let's tackle their needs. We've got a lot of people unemployed who need to get jobs, and we can help them into work if we give them the right support. A lot of people who can't get the hours in work. There's about 6 million who can't get the hours they need. We start growing the economy, we can do. And there's a lot of people with health issues and disability issues that with a bit of support, reasonable adjustments, they'll get into work. But there's lots of others who can't. So let's be proud of supporting them. We're a civilised country.
And are there more areas of support that are needed?
I think there is, in terms of support for people with health issues. The more we can speed up our health performance in the NHS, the more that we can speed up and end the waiting list, the more we can get people back into society and work, and the more that we can give people support, as we say, reasonable adjustments, so we can give them that little bit more support where they can then get into work and support themselves more. So that's all doable.
And if you see the argument again, based on the calm reaction of the last 24 hours, if you see someone say, we can't afford it, the bond markets won't let us, etc., etc., do you think you have the evidence now to say, well, I'm not sure that's true?
Look, it's always been the case that what the bond markets want is stability. They want to know there's a government that has its own plans, that will implement those plans. There'll be some things the bond markets don't like, but they'll live with it if you're providing them with stability and a steady return. And that's what Labour governments do. So what I'm pleased at, we've woken up to the fact that we're now a Labour government.
And therefore, I guess, do you expect to see more of the same in terms of what you've managed to push Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves to doing in this budget?
What we've succeeded is scrapping the two-child limit. That's great. We now need a child poverty strategy. What we've succeeded in doing is forcing the government into tackling issues like rising prices, so fares, prescriptions, and a bit on energy as well. I wish we'd have got rent controls in there too. But also we've persuaded the Chancellor that the way to go forward is actually to tackle wealth inequality within our society. So some of those taxes we saw yesterday were directed at the wealthiest. That's the Labour thing to do. Redistribute wealth and actually redistribute power as well within our society. So the employment rights we're bringing forward, that will change our society and tackle the grotesque level of inequality that we've got.
In terms of the tax raises being focused on those with the broader shoulders, I mean, a lot of the analysis might say in broad terms that's true, but actually in precise, it could have been more precise. The tax bands aspect isn't as progressive as increasing the higher rates of income tax. Some of the measures in terms of pension tax isn't as progressive as hiking tax rates. Could that have been better done than it was, or ultimately taken in total, do you commend her for what she did?
Right. On the threshold issue, it will draw what is 800,000 people into tax now. I wouldn't have done that. I would rather go back to the policy that we had, where you tax those on the higher earnings above £80,000. You'd still get about £6 billion in as a result of that. But in addition to that, I would have looked more at taxing wealth. So capital gains tax, why don't we equalise it with income tax? That would have given us a significant amount of money as well, and we wouldn't have had to drag more people at the poorest level into tax.
I mean, I guess the argument against capital gains tax is you want people to risk their capital to create businesses. You want people to...
Of course. But you want them to pay the same level of tax as me and you who are taxed on income.
Yeah, I mean...
fair.
Well, apart from that they might lose money in the process, whereas we don't lose money. But I guess that's not really the point here. The question, I guess, going forward is, do you think, with the tax burden at 38% by 2030, the highest in post-war period, with some of these sensible measures as you see them that you're articulating, that there's more room for a Labour government in the years ahead, if necessary, if the growth doesn't materialise as high as it could, to put up a couple more of these taxes and keep funding some of these other measures that you think a Labour government should?
The issue is, if you have a fair taxation system, you're then putting money in the pockets of those who will spend that money, and that's the biggest driver of growth in any economy. So it's a circular argument where you can get growth if you have fair taxation, and actually you lift people out of poverty and give them decent wages.
My final question, Sophie put this to the Chancellor, whether or not all of the measures in the budget, perhaps the two-child benefit cap's the best example, were what she always wanted to do or not. Do you believe she's genuinely pleased with all of these measures, or do you think some of them she's done sort of against her will?
Look, I'm happy this morning. We've had a huge victory for the left, actually, on this budget with the two-child limit. I'll leave it at that. I'm hoping the Chancellor's now with us, and we'll see further measures in terms of redistributing wealth to eradicate child poverty altogether and to lift people out of the circumstances that many of them face at the moment, which is pretty tough with the cost of living crisis.
John, great to have you with us this morning. Thanks for stopping by, John.